Hello everyone and welcome to tutorial number 36 in a series of video tutorials for Java programming. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button and click on the bell icon as well to stay up to date with every tutorial I upload on my channel. In the last tutorial I discussed about the thread class, runnable interface and a few methods of the thread class, and I also discussed how to create a thread using this thread class and the runnable interface. So in this tutorial, I'm going to talk about the thread methods. Okay, so this tutorial is completely going to be only about the various methods which are available in the thread. So you need to understand these concepts, okay, these methods, so that whenever you create a thread, you don't get confused. So let's get started. First of all, we have the start method. Okay, so this start method, it is defined in the thread class as I said earlier. Okay, so the definition of the start method looks something like this: public void start. So this method, it is not final. All right, the return type of this method is void, and the access specifier is public, and the name of the method is start. Okay, so this particular method, it is not, since it is not final, you can definitely override this method. Whenever you are extending from the thread class, you may override this method, but it is not recommended. And this particular start method, it is going to start execution of a thread. Okay, so first of all, we are going to create object of the thread class. Okay, using that a new thread. Then after that, we can simply call object name then dot start. Okay, so this is the functionality. It is going to start execution of a thread. Okay, it is a non-static method, as we can see right here. There is no keyword static here, so it is a non-static method. This particular method, it can be overridden, okay, as I said earlier, because it is not final. Now, this particular start method, it can throw illegal thread state exception. So when this particular exception is thrown is, when you have already started, the execution of a particular thread, if you try to start it once again, then it will throw this particular exception. Okay, so, it is possible to start the execution of the thread exactly once. Okay, so if you try to start the thread which is already started, then it is going to throw this particular exception. Then after that, we have the run method. Okay, so this start method, it is going to call the run method. Okay, so whenever we are overriding the run method. Okay, so but however, we need to call the start method only in order to start the execution of the thread. Okay, like for example, here we have thread t equals new thread. Obviously, this is the we are creating the object of the thread. Then after that, we are going to start the execution of the thread by calling this particular function t dot start. So whenever we do t dot start, it is going to call the start method, and it is going to start the execution of a particular thread. Okay, then after that, we have the sleep method. So this particular sleep method, it is used to interrupt the execution of a particular thread. Not exactly interrupt, means to put the particular thread into a waiting state or a sleeping state. Okay, now this is the particular definition of the sleep method. So public static native void sleep. Okay, so obviously public means it is the access specifier. Static means we can access this without creating the object. Native, don't worry about native. As I said earlier, the definition of this sleep method, it is provided in C or C++. The void is the return type of the method, and sleep is the name of the method. And it is going to accept a parameter long millis. Okay, then after that, this particular method, it is going to throw an interrupted exception. All right, so now this particular method, it can be accessed without creating the object, because it is a non-static method. So you can directly write thread dot sleep. Okay, now here I am writing 2000. This 2000 means I am waiting for 2 seconds. Okay, so this parameter is, in milliseconds. It is not in seconds. It is in milliseconds. So 2000 millisecond is equals to 2 seconds. So what happens is this particular, call, it is going to force that particular thread to go into sleeping state. So whenever this particular, line is executed, that particular thread, it will go into, sleeping state. Okay, so that is the, the functionality of the sleep method. All right. Then after that, so this, argument is in milliseconds. Okay. Then after that, we have the run method. So if I talk about the run method, I already discussed in the previous tutorial that run method, it is the entry point of a particular thread. Okay. So the definition of the run method is going to look something like public void run. All right, public is the, access specifier, void is the return type, it is not going to return any value, run is the name of the method. Okay, so this particular method, it has to be overridden. Okay, if you want to, create a separate thread or something, when you're extending the thread class, or whether you're, implementing the runnable interface, you need to definitely override this run method. And you should not call run directly. So this particular method, it should not be called directly from the main method. Okay, so this particular thing should not be there. Okay, you should always remember one thing. You should always call the start method. Okay, because the start method, as I've written here, the start method, it is going to call the run method. So you should not call the run method directly, because if you call the run method directly, it is not going to, start the execution of the thread. It is only going to execute the run as if, just like, it is like a normal function. Like for example, I have a display function. Imagine I'm calling the display function. Okay, it is going to execute that particular function. Similarly, the run function, it is, if I try to call this particular function in the main method directly, it is not going to, create a separate thread for that. It is simply going to call it directly. Okay, so whenever you want to call the, run method, always ensure that you call the start method instead, because calling the run method directly is not recommended, because it is not going to start execution of the thread. Okay, so then after that, we have the getName method. Okay, so this is the definition of the getName method: public final string getName. Okay, so public is the access specifier. This is final. This is a final method, which means it cannot be overridden. Okay, return type is string, and the name of the method is getName. Okay, so this particular method, it is used to, get a name of a particular thread. For example, here I have given an example. Okay, if I write this particular statement, thread dot current thread dot get name. Okay, if I write this particular statement inside the main method, then it is going to return main. Okay, so main is, this particular thing is a string. Okay, it is going to return main. So it is trying to get the name of a particular thread. Okay, that is where it is going to be used. And obviously you need to remember one thing: this is final, so this cannot be overridden. Okay, and this is a non-static method. Okay, so then don't worry about current thread. Okay, current thread, I am going to talk about it, very soon. Okay, current thread, actually it is going to fetch the thread which is currently in execution. Okay, so we will look at it very soon. Then after that, we have the get priority method. So the definition looks almost exactly the same. Okay, so public final int get priority. Public is the access specifier. Final is the, final means this method cannot be overridden. Int is the return type, and get priority is the name of the method. All right, then after that, as I said earlier, it cannot be overridden because this method is final. It is used for fetching the priority of a thread. As I said, 2 tutorials ago, each and every thread has a particular priority associated with it, just like, it has a name associated with it. In much the same manner, each and every thread has a priority, associated with it. and in order to get the priority with the of the particular thread, we are going to you call this particular function get priority in my, okay. So I'm you calling the same I'm writing the same code in the main method thread.currentThread.getPriority. So obviously thread.currentThread, it is going to fetch the main thread only, because if I'm writing this in the main function, then this particular thing, it is going to throw the main thread only. And then after that I am getting the priority of the main thread, okay. Then it is going to return 5. Now one thing you need to keep in mind, that by default the priority of the thread is always 5 in Java, okay. So for example, in a main method, if I write this particular code thread.currentThread.getPriority in the very first line, okay, then it is going to return 5, because the default priority of the main thread is 5. All right, 5 means it is a normal priority. After that we have set priority. Okay, so this particular function was to get priority, this particular function is to set priority, okay. So here we can see the difference between set and get priority. So this particular function looks something like this. All right, public means you can access it from anywhere, access specifier. Final means it cannot be overridden. Void is the return type, okay, it does not return anything. Set priority is the name of the function, and this particular function, it is going to accept the new priority, okay. So obviously this particular function, as the name itself suggests, it is to change the priority of a particular thread, okay, or set the priority of a particular thread to a new one, okay. So for example, this two things I have already told you. This is method is final, it cannot be overridden, and this method, it is going to change the priority. All right, now here I am creating the object, okay, and here I am setting the priority, okay. So if obviously we cannot write this thing in the main method. Why? I hope you know the reason. This thing cannot be written in the main method, because this and super, okay, these two keywords, they cannot be referenced from a static context. So we can write this in any other function. And if we write this in any other function, let us assume that we are talking about a particular thread, okay. So it is going to set priority of that particular thread to 3, okay. So obviously I'm not using the IDE right now, so I cannot show you that I cannot show you how exactly this thing is working. But this particular function, it is going to set priority of a thread to 3, okay. Then after that we have set name, okay. So this particular method has the following definition. We have public. Public is the access specifier, it can be accessible anywhere. Final means it cannot be overridden, okay. Void is the return type. Set name is the name of the function, and string name, it is the parameter. So this particular function, okay, it is going to change the name, obviously. And for example, here I have shown you an example, okay. So we can write this particular statement inside another non-static function. We cannot write this in a static function, but we can definitely write this in a non-static function. And this particular function, the set name, it is going to set the name of a particular, okay, a particular thread to factorial, okay. So it all depends that this t belongs to which thread, okay. So it is going to change the name of that particular thread to factorial. Then after that, if I write system.out.println t.getName, then it is going to return factorial, okay. So it is used to change name of a thread. So that is what this particular function is used for. These things will be more clear when I use the IDE. All right. Then after that, we have the current thread method. So this is how the definition of this method looks like. Public static native thread current thread. Okay, public is the access specifier, Static means obviously, this is a static method. We don't need to create an object. Native means the definition of this method is provided in C++, okay, or a C. Then thread is the return type of this method. Current thread is the name of the method. All right, and this particular method, it is going to return the object of the thread, which or the instance of the thread which is currently under execution. Like for example, if I write this particular statement in the main method, it is going to return the object of the main thread. That means it is going to return the object of that thread which is currently under execution. All right, so that is what this particular thread is this particular method is used for. It returns the instance of the thread which is currently under execution. Okay, but since this is static, we don't need to create object. We can simply write class name, then dot, then method name. All right, then after that we have interrupt method. So interrupt method, this particular method, it is not final. Okay, this particular method is non-final, so we can definitely override this particular method. Public void interrupt. Okay, so public is the the access specifier, void is the return type, it does not return anything, and interrupt is the name of the function. Okay, so what this particular function is going to do, it is going to interrupt the waiting state or the sleeping state of a particular thread. Okay, as I discussed a few minutes ago, I discussed about the sleep method, right? So what is the sleep method going to do? The sleep method, it is going to put a thread into a sleeping state or a waiting state, right? So this particular interrupt method, it is going to interrupt the sleeping state or the waiting state. Okay, so obviously it can be overridden because it is not final. Now here I have given an example. Okay, so let us assume that a thread is currently under execution. Okay, and I have put it into a sleeping state. Then what is going to happen is, when I write this particular statement, it is going to interrupt the sleeping state of that particular thread, and it is going to, the thread will once again start working. Okay, it will once again start its execution. Okay, interrupt the sleeping state of a particular thread. That is what this particular method is used for. Okay, interrupt the sleeping state or the waiting state. So this thing will be more clever when you use the IDE. Then after that we have the isInterrupted method. Okay, so this particular method, it is going to find out whether the thread has been interrupted or not. Okay, so the return type of this function is boolean. Okay, access specifier is as usual, it is public. IsInterrupted is the name of this particular method. Okay, so it is going to return the interrupted state of a thread. Okay, so return type is boolean. That means it is going to return true if the thread has been interrupted, okay, by using this particular interrupt method. And however, it is going to return false if the thread has not been interrupted. Okay, so now let us go back to the first slide, and let me show you one thing. So now that I have shown you all the methods. Actually there are 2 or 3 more methods. Like we have a daemon thread, but for that I need to discuss the theoretical part. Then after that I will show you the the what the daemon thread is all about. Okay, then after that we have 2 or 3 methods for that particular concept. Now, let me talk about what I said in the last previous tutorial itself. So, you know very well that there are 2 methods for creating a particular thread, right? One is extending thread, and another one is implementing the runnable interface. Now, you would have understood why I told you that you should implement the runnable interface, because most of the methods are final. Okay, this start method is not final. Okay, so you can definitely override this method. Sleep method, it is static in nature. Okay, so forget about overriding this one. Run method, okay, obviously you need to override this method. Okay, this overriding this method is mandatory. All right, then you cannot override this one. Get name, you cannot override this method. You cannot override get priority method. You cannot override the set priority method. You cannot override setName method. Okay. Similarly, this currentThread method, it is static in nature. That means you cannot override this one also because it is static. So you cannot override static methods. Then after that, interrupt, you can override this interrupt method, and you can override this isInterrupted method also. So maximum you can override 3 or 4 methods. So when I discuss about the daemon thread, it will be more clear to you. Okay, but most of the methods which are defined in the thread class are final only. So you cannot override a lot of methods. That is why it is always recommended to create a thread by implementing runnable, but it is up to you that whichever method you want to use. All right, so that's all I'm going to talk about in this particular tutorial. And if you have any kind of questions or any kind of doubts, then don't forget to post in the comment section below, and I will get back to you when I can. And if you liked this particular tutorial, then don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I will see you in the next tutorial. So till then, bye.